video editing program decided that it was going to not work for me, and I tried to uninstall it. I had a beta version of it, and so what I tried to do was I tried to replace the beta version with the official version to see if that would work. Unfortunately, what happened after that was it said that the database it couldn't sync, and so I lost all of my like projects that I had started before. Luckily, most of my timers are already in like video form. They've already been uh, made up, so I can just and they've already been put here into OBS, so I can just run those as is. Unfortunately, I didn't have time to fix one up for this stream, and so that's why you see me right away and my layout and everything else. But despite the irritation that has come of that little snafu, I'm still here. I told you guys that I was going to do my best to get back on schedule, and so that's what I'm doing. I'm late again because things were being stupid and not working. But again, that's more or less neither here nor there at this point. So anyway, um, I'm going to start kind of a newer series when it comes to these anime discussions. Before, what I was doing was I started with discussing plot points about the adaptations from uh, Studio Arts Key visual novels into different anime. And then I kind of just went on more of a tangent about anime that I liked. But what I wanted to do this time around, as you can see from the title, is I wanted to kind of break things down a little bit more. I'm sure that you've heard me discuss how I believe, certain anime reach a relatable level. And I wanted to kind of explain more or less what I mean by that. And in doing so, or rather to do so, I wanted to start with one that on the surface may seem very uh, bizarre. And it is extremely bizarre. It's very corny, very just it's you're very out of the box and yet very kind of um in your face anime called Ultimate Utaku Teacher. The reason why I wanted to start with this one is because like I said, it's very kind of explosive, it's very in your face, and it's a little unusual. But I think in taking one that is that way, that is very unusual, I can better explain my thinking and how something so outrageous could still be very relatable to every day. So, Ultimate Otaku Teacher. I'll just kind of start with what it's about. So it's about a young man. I believe he's around 28 or 29. I think it's 29. His name is Junichiro uh, Kagami. Now, Junichiro is crazy smart. He is just like crazy smart. He has the potential to basically do whatever, you know, type of job that he wants to do. Unfortunately, Junichiro is the pinnacle of otaku. To him, there is nothing more important than anime, than collections, than everything basically anime or manga related. And because of that, he has gotten more of this sort of uh, lazy persona. And he blames it all on something that he calls YD. And it's kind of funny because during the beginning of each one, he talks about YD and he like talks about what people might think it is. And he says something like, "What? You think it means yummy dinners or I like wearing yukatas on dates?" And he goes, "Wrong." And he talks about what it actually is. And to him, it's a debilitating illness that only allows him to do what he yearns to do. Unfortunately for Junichiro, figuring that particular portion out is easier said than done. Like I said, he's the pinnacle of otaku. And much to the annoyance of certain people, including his little sister. Suzune Kagami is Junichiro's little sister. But unlike Junichiro, she's very hardworking. She's very impulsive. She she wants to do her best in everything that she does, and she also wants Junichiro to do the best in what he does. Unfortunately, she doesn't want him to just waste his life away on like message boards and anime. She wants him to actually go out and do something, anything with his life. The problem is that to uh, motivate him, usually her idea of motivation is to threaten him by chasing him around with a baseball bat. Yeah, like I said, it's a little out there, but just stick with me. So, but it isn't that Suzune is a terrible person that's just a bully. That's not the case. You know, she loves Junichiro. You know, he's her brother. It's just that Junichiro's way of thinking is very abstract and very abnormal. Whereas for Suzune, the hard worker that she is, even though she's very loud and very uh, animated, she's also a very practical and a very sort of in the box thinker. And as I said, to her, it's very important that Shinichiro just get a job, any kind of job. So she does what any loving, loyal sister would do. She fills out an application for him and sends it in. Yeah, a little excessive, but her heart is in the right place. Well, the job that she applies him for is to be a teacher. And Junichiro is huh, not happy. He is very just, oh, he's not enthusiastic. He's not any kind of excited about this new job whatsoever. In fact, to him, it's the worst possible thing that could ever happen in the history of forever. And at first, when he goes in, his idea is to make a fuss and basically get the principal to fire him. But his vision suddenly shifts when something, or rather, someone, catches his eye. This is Minako Kano. Minako has a dream. She wants to be a voice actress. And she is very, very passionate about what she wants to do. She works every day practicing her voice, training it, everything she can do to be able to get closer and closer to her dream of being a voice actress. Now, Junichiro's first run in with Minako is at first he's trying to talk to the principal and trying to do whatever he can to get out of this job. But then he hears Minako singing. Suddenly, he bolts out of the room and he starts following the voice. The reason being is because Minako is actually singing the intro to one of his favorite anime. So he finds her on the roof, and needless to say, she's very surprised and a little bit freaked out because he's very enthusiastic about what she's doing, and so is she, but up to this point, she's never met anyone else that was enthusiastic about it. So when this total random guy just runs up and starts like talking to her about the song, she's a little freaked out. And then something happens that probably should not have. See, when Minako tells Junichiro about her dream, he basically tells her that it's crazy and she has no chance. She tells her, or he tells her, that her chances of becoming a voice actress that is successful is very slim, and proceeds to tell her statistics about what little percentage of voice actors actually get up off of the ground doing their work. Monako doesn't take this very well. She gets very angry and proceeds to punch Junichiro right in the face, earning her the name Face Punch. But there's actually more about Monako. See, Manako wasn't always as driven as she is when the story begins. In fact, there was a time when Manako didn't see a point in anything. She had no passion. Her idea of passion or fun was to go around with her friends and make trouble. They were actually a part of a local gang. But this is where things really start to open up, and you see just how real this can get. Because there comes a point when Minako has reached her all time low. And it's one of those things where you realize that when you're on a path that is not necessarily good, sometimes that stubbornness can lead it to where the only way that you'll make a change is to hit rock bottom. And unfortunately, Minako reached rock bottom. She had reached the point where literally more than ever she believed there was no point in anything. That everything and everyone was basically just out for themselves. There was no good in the world. She said that there are no heroes, that the heroes that you see on TV are just completely imaginary. Well, she was a part of a message board back then. And when she left this message about how she was basically just completely tired of the world, she received a message back that said, if there are no heroes, become one. Suddenly, a whole new set of doors opened for Minako because she believed that if there was someone out there that really believed that it was possible to be a hero, then maybe the world wasn't as bleak and as dark as she at first thought. So she was lifted up out of that darkness, out of that hole that she was in when she reached rock bottom. Reaching rock bottom is a very real thing. It's very difficult for those that get there. Sometimes you don't even realize it. Sometimes that point is so low that you think it's normal. That how you feel is completely just the way it is. And there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. That's where Monaco was at this point. But because of one uplifting word from someone, she began on the path to actually chase her dream. But it went further than that because Monaco's dream wasn't just to become a voice actress just for no reason, just for the heck of it. No, her dream was to become a voice actress so that hopefully someday she would be able to lift someone else up, like that mysterious person did for her. She wanted to be an inspiration. She wanted to be a hero. If there are no heroes, become one. That became the credo that Monaco lived by. It just goes to show how powerful words can sometimes be. When someone can come along when you're in that all time low spot and they can, even if it's just for a moment, lift you up just enough to where you can pull out. I don't know about you guys, but to me, that is an example of a miracle. But Junichiro's story didn't end with Manako Kano. In fact, it got a little bit harder because just as he was beginning to kind of slip in and get comfortable with his life, with his new life as a teacher, suddenly a misunderstanding threatened to change everything. And you wouldn't know it at first by the way that he acted, because when this misunderstanding happened, it threatened to actually get him fired. He kind of acted like it was the best thing in the world, that finally he was free. But there were other forces at work that definitely made sure that that was not the case. Kiyomi, uh, Kiyomi Hiragi. I don't know why that last name took me up so much, but anyway, Kiyomi Hiragi. She is the head of another school, and she she is a bit of an oddball. Well, everybody in this series is, but for her, I think it goes a little far because at a certain point, Junichiro actually catches her eye, and the school that she's a part of is one that is normally for, you know, accomplished students. But like with any school, you have the problem group. And that's where Kiyomi felt a little bit stuck because she didn't know exactly how to handle the problem group. But there was something else a little bit more diabolical from her, though, because the way that she played things off was she was just looking for something that would keep her interest. That Shinichiro's abstract way of teaching would be entertaining. So she, for a long while, plays it off as though Shinichiro and the students that he would soon meet are nothing more than her pawns in her little game to entertain herself. And maybe that's actually true. Maybe she was just trying to entertain herself. But something else came out of that. Because of the things that she did, Shinichiro was able to reach more people. A good example is Canon Shinami. Canon is an acquaintance of Suzune's. Suzune wants to be Canon's friend, but Canon has a bit of an issue in the form of very high social anxiety. When you meet Canon, you see that she never speaks. She wasn't always that way, but for the moment, she never speaks. Instead, in order to communicate, she always texts. On top of that, she struggles a lot in classes. But there's a particular reason why Canon catches Shinichiro's eye. And depending on what you know about Shinichiro, you may or may not be surprised. You see, the reason why Canon never speaks is because she's very self conscious of her voice. Canon wasn't always this way, though. She used to talk a lot, but over time, as her voice changed, or rather didn't change, she became more and more self aware and self conscious. And she began to believe that people were actually making fun of her behind her back. And because of that, she just stopped talking altogether. So why did Shinichiro want to hear? So why did Shinichiro want to hear her voice? Simple. Kanon actually has an anime voice. It's her natural voice, her way of speaking. And he was thrilled. But Kanon is very stubborn. She, for the longest time, refuses to speak. She refuses to indulge in Shinichiro's little plan because she's self conscious. Because she thinks that she shouldn't be proud of her voice. She shouldn't want to speak up. She's embarrassed. Canon is a character that her humanity is so reflectant. Because let's face it, we all have something we're not exactly proud of, something embarrassing, something we don't necessarily like about ourselves. We really are our worst critics. Us, ourselves. We, in one way or another, condemn ourselves. And you can think that, you're the most confident person in the world, but I guarantee you that if someone really digs in deep, they can find something that you think is just wrong. Over time, though, as Jinichiro is tutoring her and inevitably trying to get her to speak, there's a shift in Keno. Eventually, he realizes that the way to get to her is because there's a singer that she adores, that she absolutely adores. And she wants to go see them in concert, but her parents will only let her if her grades improve. So some people might think, oh, well, that's like dangling a carrot in front of a hungry horse, which would be a very rude and, kind of mean thing to do. But the thing that you learn about Junichiro over time is that he has no ill will, none at all. He may think a little differently than the rest of us, but sometimes even despite himself, really all he wants to do is help people through a little bit of conniving, a little bit of badgering. Eventually, Kenan finds the confidence she needs to speak up, to let her voice be heard. She's still a little bit, you know, nervous and a little bit like it's not the best feature about herself, but she grows a little bit at a time. And that's the thing is that a lot of the times for maybe the time that is allotted or just the story in general, it's growth is either just way too fast and unnatural, or it's more just a design for the plot, which Kanon's confidence and all of the things that Jinichiro helps with is in fact plot related, but because she's not 100% ready to just scream out and talk to the world yet, by the time Jinichiro is done, there's a lot more humanity behind Kanon's character than a lot of, I think, very bogged down characters you might come to see. Between Kanon and between Monako, there's a lot of growth between them. Something that I forgot to mention was that after Monako uh, quit her gang, there was a friend of hers that basically turned against her. She started to believe that Monako felt that she was better than everybody. She was stuck up and she just like she didn't really deserve her friendship anymore. And so she turned into a bully instead. To the point where her and her friends actually really hurt Monako. They were acting all friendly, like they were, trying to help her. But as it turned out, when they brought her something that they said would help to soothe her voice, instead, what they brought her was ground up chalk. Monako drank it and it hurt her voice. And she wasn't at her all time low at that point, but it hurt. The thing is, though, I don't 100% blame the bully either. See, sometimes we reach this point in our lives where friends that we had suddenly drift from us. And we don't really understand why. Maybe we think it's something that we did, but instead of blaming ourselves, it's easier for us to blame the other person, to think they're just not a good person. They just have their issues, and that's all there is to it. It's not two sided, it's one sided. It's their fault. And therefore, we think we're above it all. Sometimes. In this case, that's exactly what happened. She didn't understand the real reason why Monako just suddenly quit on her. And though she didn't really want to admit it, it hurt her feelings. But she wanted to act all tough and like nothing in the world could hurt her. So in the end, she ended up trying to hurt Monako. Unfortunately, that's the way it is sometimes. And I think the reason why that's the way it is because sometimes we forget that there's always something that someone else might be going through. Sometimes, sometimes we get caught up in our own problems so much that we forget about the other people. Now, granted, of course, Monako needed to take care of herself. That was important because she was at that all time low. And if she didn't do something, and her story could have ended up much worse. But in trying to figure out her own life, she kind of shifted, and I think she didn't actually forget her friend, but because she didn't want that life, because she didn't want to feel low anymore, she she herself looked for a way out. Unfortunately, she forgot to try to bring her friend up with her. And so it becomes that cycle of, well, if you hurt me, I'm going to hurt you. That's exactly what happened between these two friends. Junichiro, though, he wasn't going to stand for that. He believed that bullies needed to be taught a lesson. And that was basically the catch of well, I won't say every episode because sometimes the lesson took more than one episode, but I'd say between every two episodes, when he would begin his plan to help somebody, he would walk off, he would kind of swagger and say, time to start the lesson. So the bully's plan was to hurt Monaco's reputation. Shinichiro decided to give her a taste of her own medicine. I'm not saying that an eye for an eye is the right thing to do. It's not. But the thing is, and the difference is, Shinichiro, as I said before, he has no real ill will. He just wanted to scare them. In the end, he explained, he exposed himself, and he said that everything that he threatened to do was a fib. He just wanted to show them what it felt like. So, getting back on track a little bit more, we have Monaco and we have Canon. But his legacy didn't stop there. In fact, he continued to try to teach his lessons to people. Kiriko Shikishima. Kiriko is kind of a shy student. She keeps to herself a lot on the outside, but she also has a sort of a drive. See, Kiriko, when Jinichiro first meets her, is about to get kicked out of school. The reason being is because she has a part time job. And that is something that, according to the school rules, isn't allowed. So she's left with this sort of idea that she's in the wrong, that she's doing something wrong. Nature says, "Uh, that's not it." He says, "You are not the one to blame here." And in this instance, he teaches a double lesson. Makina Momozono. She's the chairman, the student body president, and as such, she believes that it's her job to deal out punishment. She's the one who actually is trying to kick Kiriko out of school. Whether or not Kiyomi cares one way or another is kind of unclear at this point, but she does stick up for Kiriko and say that Makina is being too harsh, that this is not an offense that should be met by expulsion. But Makina unfortunately disagrees. She believes that there's the rules and that's it. There's no gray area, there's no two ways about it. It's the rules or nothing. That in order to keep things in order, that's the way it has to be. And so she has to be punished. Also, she doesn't exactly have the most amount of respect for Kuriko's job. See, Kuriko works at a maid cafe. To Makino, this is just a horrible taboo. She believes that by exposing, by Kuriko exposing herself to this, it's beyond the low. But Junichiro says that no, you're wrong. And she says and he says that it's because she doesn't understand the I can't remember for the life of me what she calls it or what he calls it, but it's basically like what the maid stands for, what it's really about. And the truth is, if Kariko really wanted to, she could probably, in time, become well. She could take a lot of jobs because of this one job that she wants to keep. See, Kariko is in this position where she has to really observe people. She has to understand their likes and their dislikes. She has to understand how to communicate with them. She has to understand how to get through to them so that she can do the best by them that she can as her customers. The customer is always right. But Makina doesn't understand this. Like I said, she thinks it's completely taboo, that it's just a ridiculous thing. And because of that, she condemns her for it. But Shinichiro gives her a challenge. He says, work for this cafe. I can't remember if it was a day or if it was a week. I think it was a week. And see if you make it. The caveat here, or the idea here, is preconception. I spoke about preconception when I talked about Toradora, but the preconception here on Machina's side is that maids are garbage. It should not even be a job. But when she tries to take on the job for herself, suddenly it's not that black and white. Because slowly but surely, Junichiro and Kariko show her just what it takes. And like I said, in order to do this job, you have to understand your customers to a T, which means you have to understand people. There is no way around it because every customer is different. Every customer has their likes and their dislikes. Every customer wants to see a different side of every maid. So that's what it becomes. It becomes this journey for Makana where she has to let go of this preconception that she has. And thankfully, eventually, she does. She not only has a new respect for the job, but she has a new respect for Kariko. And actually, it was Kariko's possible expulsion that made him say, okay, I'm going to get this. I'm going to keep this job. After he got basically swindled and taken by Kiyomi. See, each student he comes into contact with has their quirks, has their beliefs, and they get a little weird sometimes, including when passion becomes obsession. And you get to see just how teeny tiny thin that line can get sometimes. And that little problem, that little problem comes in the form of Sachiko Tanaka. Tanaka. Sachiko is a mangaka. She's a manga artist. She believes that it is her life. Unfortunately, that also means she believes she doesn't need to come to class. She's not quite delinquent level, but she is a skipper. Like I said, she's so focused on her manga every single day that everything else kind of goes by the wayside. And it's because of this that, again, we see Makina kind of nudge a little bit. Because Makina does have a new respect for Kariko, but she's still wary of Junichiro at this point. So she basically makes him this ultimatum. She gives him a list of students that are problems, that have their own issues, and usually don't come to class for one reason or another. She says, complete this list, get these people to come to class, or you're not doing your job. And that is uh, reason enough to fire you. And seeing it as an interesting challenge, Yumi agrees with this. She's kind of says, okay, have your little challenge. So one of the names on the list is Sachiko's. So when is it that passion becomes obsession? Well, as I said, it's a very thin, fine line sometimes. And unfortunately, it, this is it. This is, like I said, this is where passion meets obsession. See, Sachiko is actually very smart, but she uses that as a way of saying, I don't need to go to class. I know this. I can do it. And so, who needs school? She also thinks she's not going to ever use it. So, what's the point? She's going to be a mangaka. She's going to be a manga artist. That is her trail. That is her life. Things become a little more interesting when Shinichiro actually discovers that Sachiko wrote one of his favorites. Once again, he, it piques his interest. In every lesson, every way that Shinichiro does things is extremely out of the box and very abnormal. But by reaching around and taking the normal and twisting it and basically working it out to how it will impact whatever student he's trying to work with, he actually becomes a very, very good teacher. Not only that, but a beloved teacher. Again, this becomes a little bit of a double lesson because eventually Shinichiro comes to the realization that Sachiko and Kiyomi actually used to be really good friends. But now Kiyomi is under this impression that, or no, I'm sorry, not Kiyomi, uh, Makina. Sorry, Sachiko and Minaka are really good friends, or were really good friends. And the problem became that Sachiko got so wrapped up in her manga that kind of like what happened with Minako, she just kind of left her friend by the wayside. For a while, though, Shinichiro has this idea to where she will, or he will basically play to Sachiko's strengths and what she believes that she wants. See, he makes a deal with her. He says, come to school, but It's for reference. Focus on your manga. Do that if that's really what makes you happy. But come to school so that you have something to compare, something to look for. Seeing this as a way to better herself, rather her manga, she takes this deal. And that becomes the beginning of Sachiko's lesson. Over time, Jinichiro still kind of letting her do what she wants, but also he begins to shift things in a direction where Makina gets more and more involved. And eventually, he's able to get Sachiko to see Manaka's point of view. Makina's his name sometimes. Anyway, Makina's point of view. And she actually becomes a regular full time student. Sometimes, in fact, I'd say 99% of the time, when you're trying to help somebody, you have to cater the way that you do it. Because no one person is alike. There is always more than one way to get through to people. And everyone on this cast, every student has their quirks, their drives, and their ways of looking and dealing with the world. Shinichiro, being an abstract thinker himself, notices this. And because of that, he can do this job. Not only that, but he becomes kind of an icon almost. Nobody ever thought that anyone would ever really be able to reach these people. But Junichiro does because he is willing to see each and every one of them for who they are, to really dig in and to realize, again, there is no one way to handle everyone. Everybody, everyone has their own way. That's the mark of a good teacher. When you can when you can adapt that well and that extensively, that is when you are really going to see change. Whether it's a mangaka that's obsessed with her work, or a young man who's being bullied because he's not exactly like the rest. Junichiro sees the value in every single one of these people, every single one of his students. Suddenly, this drudgery, this terrible thing that he thinks that Suzune has done becomes the best thing in the world that could have ever happened to him. Sometimes we need a push to find our passion. And that's where Shinichiro becomes relatable to us. Because he needed that push. He needed that shove. Sometimes, and for different reasons. Sometimes the world has just beat us down and we don't think we'll be able to accomplish even if we try. And so we just stop. Sometimes we let our we let what we think we want get in the way of what we could truly be, what we could truly become, and what might actually be something that could help people, could help the world. But if we open ourselves up to new ways of thinking, to new ways of understanding, suddenly, maybe not completely or right away, but things become more and more clear. There is no one factor or one bullet point for the ultimate otaku teacher because it's all of these things. It's about getting past insecurities. It's about finding what you really, really, really are passionate for. It's about being there for people. It's about being able to see past your own ideas and really see someone. It's about sometimes putting aside your self indulgences and really understanding there's more out there. It's about growth. That's how the most abstract and albeit corny thing can become probably one of the most powerful. And that's why I wanted to start this new series here. Because if we can see the relatable side of something so abstract and abnormal, just think about the new views and new ways we can get to see other things. Maybe even the things around us. That is what this is really about. And here, from this point, I'm finished. I'm finished with this stream. But this is only the beginning. This is where it starts. if you like what you see, if you liked this discussion, if it made you think, then come back for more. You can follow me on Facebook. I have a page, Kai Hanata Plays. You can follow me on Twitter. It's Hanata underscore Kai. Or, of course, right here on YouTube and on Twitch. My YouTube is Kai Hanata Plays, just like my Facebook. And my uh, Twitch is Kai Hanata Plays 2020. So if you liked being able to see and observe and think about these, just wait for next time. All right. Until then, thank you for tuning in.